I think the biggest thing that I had to do after these last 2 weeks is remind teenagers to not let the result or the numbers on the scoreboard be the biggest influence on your attitude, energy, and effort and behavior.
I just was playing because I love the game. Like, and it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Below 6 in his hands, listless now.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
Which, I don't know the last time you tried to teach a teenager that lesson. It ain't easy.
No, and that's like a Friday Night Lights quote, right? Talking to Mike Winchell.
Yeah, the only difference between winning and losing is the way people treat you. It's the way the outside world looks at you.
The outside world views. That's right. Yeah, they don't get that at this age. I mean, some of them do, but most of them don't, unfortunately.
I mean, and what's hilarious is that do not think that this is like an issue special to children and special to teenagers. Like we, 2 Fridays ago, we didn't play great and we played sloppy, undisciplined, had a bunch of penalties. And now all of a sudden, all these people, you need to fix this, you need to fix that, as if everything that was accomplished the first half of the season was a moot point. Like, you guys got to remember, do I want to win? Yeah. I hate losing. I hate losing more than I like winning. But we're not doing all this stuff for the numbers on the scoreboard. Like, I still can't remember who said it, but, life's not all about football, but football's all about life.
Yep. Yeah, it's the time of the year right now where everybody goes through it. Those that are fortunate enough to be, fill in the blank and 7-0, 8-0, like they're not really going through it, but it's that kind of grind time of the year, halfway through the season, towards the end of the season, where people that aren't happy because they're not getting the playing time, parents that aren't happy because their son's not getting the playing time, all of those things are starting to kind of surface a little bit. And people are more willing to speak up now than they were preseason or beginning of the season. And so it's having to manage those type of issues and not let those seep into your ecosystem as a coach and as the environment that you create. So it's always interesting how people deal with those things. And Coach Lee was always really good about, he always talked about, we have to be very, very insulated in what we do, because the more insulated we are, the more that the echo chamber, which I speak, that goes down to what the coaches speak, or is now being echoed across our ecosystem. When we become not insulated is the moment that we allow the external, the external voices to seep in and manifest into what should not happen.
Yeah, and I think that's like, man, we were in the trenches with, the classic like mid-season grind, like that, mental, emotional battle. Like, football's a game of attrition, and it's not just a physical game of attrition. Like, there's a mental aspect to it. And like you said, if you're not one of those teams that has a perfect record, like, you've dealt with adversity of some kind in those losses. And were they truly just losses, or were they lessons? Like, did you come back with the same expectation that next Monday morning? Did you come back with that same effort on that first practice back for the new week? And I mean, we were at a point where I didn't really know the best way to go about it, right? Like, I'm not 100% sure that there is an approach that's like, hey, this is, without a shadow of doubt, this is what's going to get your collection of kids over that mental like wall, over that block. But I made everybody sit down and be like, guys, the heck's going on? And, you kind of have to tear down those, for a brief moment, tear down those barriers, or like those like role identifications that you have on the practice field. Like, hey, we're not going to yell, scream, like nobody's going to lose their temper, but we're not going to be rude or disrespectful. like, but I'm going to ask questions, and you guys are going to have to answer them, because how you answer them is going to impact you way more than it's going to impact me. And, it sounds a little hippie and like a little kumbaya, but like, I think that how your kids respond in those situations, right? Do you get the classic like 7th grade English environment where only the one kid talks and everybody else is tuned out like, when's this going to be over? Or do you get that snowball momentum effect where like the first guy shares his thoughts and then somebody else does? And sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you got to kick that snowball over the edge of the hill before it starts picking up speed. So sometimes you got to force the issue and make them, but you know, how many different times and how many different ways have you heard like the difference between bad teams and good teams, or bad teams are coach led and good teams are player led? And I think that as a head coach, even as a coordinator, finding ways to steal time to create those environments, it's, you know, I would say the longer I do this, the less it's about the X's and O's. And this past week was a glaring example of that.
Interesting. It's I think there's always ways to go about in generating the players' voices to speak up. Coach Lee, he would do one thing after practice. I'm not sure if he still does it or not. And the evolution of it was interesting, right? So, like, let's just say you're a player. We called up post practice. We're all taking a knee, and if I'm Coach Lee, I'd say, "Hey, all right, Travis, you're an offensive player. Go ahead and stand up and talk to me about today's practice offensively." And he would do the same thing with the defensive player. And it was interesting because, like, the first week, and he nipped it in the bud immediately, but it was like the answer was like, "Thought it was good," and he was like, "Okay, like let's just stop right here. Hey guys, from now on, when I ask you this, because it's gonna be something different every single day, give me a football answer." And you can praise whomever you want, but I want you to say, I thought it was a good day today. Today we're working on some of their 4-down stuff. Tomorrow will probably be some more Okie, but it was more of the 4-down stuff and how we're going to attack leverage. That's how you need to speak. And it took a few days for the kids to get out over the hump of like, I thought it was good. I thought so-and-so did good today. Like, no, get into the weeds and start talking. It was funny because that ended up like making the players' voices be heard more. They started talking more football throughout the day, throughout practice. It just matured them a little bit. And so my point is like, you have to find different methods and different ways to get the kids to speak. I think the quickest way to disarm any type of kid ever is to get the kid to speak about his process, because then he actually has to sit and like think about, well, why do I do what I do? And most of them won't have that answer. The moment you as a head coach or you as a coach in general just start speaking to a kid or at a kid, that's what everybody else does. And now they're just going to get pissed off and they're just not going to have a voice. But the moment you force them to have a voice, like what you just said, is the moment they're going to be like, and they'll feel embarrassed because they don't know what to say. And then it forces like internal analysis of what the hell am I doing?
And I think that's like the biggest takeaway from us, like, our kids and our program doing it this week was that, I mean, kids aren't stupid. Like, they know what their shortcomings are. They know what the team's shortcomings are. They know what things that they need to be better about. But if I just react every time it's bad and yell at you, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. And there's not even just the proactivity of like trying to be ahead of the game, but if there's no like dialogue, acknowledgement of like, so you're going to tell me that you don't know that behavior is wrong. Like if you don't, like you said, if you don't force them to have that conversation first with themselves and then out loud, then you give them the out.
Yep.
Well, nobody ever told me that. Right. No one explicitly said, hey, don't cuss at the other team during a timeout, or don't, because you're frustrated, throw the ball at an official. You're right. Nobody explicitly said that, but you're not stupid and you know right from wrong. And that was it. That was a huge turning point for us. I mean, it was not all sunshine and rainbows, and it got awkward and it was uncomfortable, and guys didn't want to have to share their mind, but they did, and they contributed, and what that did was it started to build momentum to where now some of the younger guys, hey, this is what I'm thinking, hey, which right, wrong, or indifferent, if a freshman stands up and says something, you're gonna be like, okay, chief, like you just make sure that you're in the stretch line on time. But that's how you begin to build leadership, right? That's how you begin to solve that problem for the next year and the next year and the next year, is show these kids that because I think the misconception is that like, there's always that like teacher's pet, stereotype. Nobody wants to be that, within their peers. They don't want to be viewed that way. And it's the same thing in athletics. Nobody wants to behave in a way that's going to make their peers make fun of them or like call them out. Like, why do you always have to do, why do you have to go the extra mile? Why do you have to do, but when you show them and you give them a platform to say, hey, if that's how you feel, say it out loud. You're going to find out whether or not it has substance or if it has sizzle, right? And are they saying it because they know that's what other people want them to say, or are they saying it because that's really how they feel? And that's how you, like you said, get down into the weeds. And it, again, the longer I do this, the less it becomes about the X's and O's. Are they important? Yes. Are the athletes important? Yes. But the mental, emotional side, like, dude, it's been glaringly eye-opening of if you don't fill that cup, then no other cup will ever be full. And, fortunately it worked. I may not be saying any of this if it didn't work, but fortunately it worked. And the kids Friday, they responded in the right way. And, we went, I think it was about 2 minutes left in the first half before we got our first penalty, and it was a false start. So, to me, that was a good sign because, there was no post-snap penalties, no pre-snap penalties for the majority of the first half. So to me, that showed a reinvigorated focus and discipline, which was something that we had been lacking for the past couple weeks.
Yeah, because you got snapped a 2-game losing streak, right?
Yeah. That's why I try to tell these kids, like, guys, you lost to the number 7 team in the state, and then you lost to the defending district champ, who's the number 12 team in the state. Like, it's not like we scrimmaged the local Pee Wee team and lost. So,
Right.
let's keep it all in perspective.
Right.
And, you play you got to take some different angles and right, wrong, or indifferent. I told those kids, I was like, listen, this is what other people say about you. I know you get tired of hearing it from me, but here's what other coaches that have teams that we've beat, coaches of teams that have beat us, this is what they say about you. So does that sound like things that they've said about you in the past? No. You're different this year. Stop reverting to old habits. Mm-hmm. And so it was a great night for us because yes, we won, but we won in a way that I was used to seeing these kids play. And that was what was most important to me. So it was a good night, and it was a test. It was a test that I carried heavily on my shoulders when I came home, and Kelly had to, she had to hear a little bit of extra venting, and there was a couple things that she had to, kind of reel me back in on, but that's the power of the coach's wife, like Cliff told us. But I also think, not to like pat ourselves on the back, but I also think that it's a huge point of emphasis, like, and shining a light on that versus what's going on, like, a couple hours down the road, down outside of Palestine. I don't know all the details, but this whole thing in Palestine Westwood is it's not new, right? This coach is not the first person to ever do something like this. He won't be the last, but he's the most recent. And I think that right, wrong, or indifferent, to a certain extent, there had to be a little bit of smoke or people don't jump to this conclusion. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm clueless.
So Palestine Westwood, 3A school down, obviously in Palestine, coaches alleged to have been on their bye week out scouting, very normal activity, but is alleged to have been associated with a school employee that was filming the opponent's signals.
Ooh.
As we all know, college is moving away from it, but at the high school level, there's
Connor Stallions action.
Yeah, a little Connor Stallions action,
Right.
And Connor Stallions has set a public precedent that people have known about for years within the game, and now the rest of the world is finding out. But this employee apparently was filming the other team's signals, which is obviously a big no-no.
Yeah.
And so now they're being forced to, they had their appeal, they lost, they're being forced to forfeit all of their district games up to this point. They were undefeated.
Ooh.
And then the coach is suspended for the rest of the season. So I think they had to, I don't know. I don't think there was a ban from playoffs, but I think that they had to win out starting this past Friday to still make the playoffs, if possible at all. But I just find it interesting that, you know, like I said, I don't know all the details. What little I do know, I have formed my opinion. What I will blanket state is that there had to be a little bit of smoke for there to be fire. Point blank, period. Yeah. And the other part of that is you better make sure when something like this happens, if you're going to come out, obviously staunchly defend yourself, you better make sure that there ain't no holes in that wall of defense that you're building. And because if there is, it only makes it worse.
Well, I was going to say, like, what was like, how would they appeal that? Like, I guess, what was the accusation, and then what was how did they say that they weren't doing it?
So an administrator from a different school was in the press box, saw them, obviously knows who knows who the head coach is. Next to the head coach is a guy in that school's attire, like a polo or whatever. And he's actively taking multiple videos of the game.
Got it. Okay.
And so like, they're sitting in the bleachers and the admin's up in the press box looking down, watching them. And there's all, there's all these defenses. And like that guy says that his girlfriend that lives out of state, he was taking videos to show her like look how big of a deal, how crazy Texas high school football is. And like, their defense is like, well, he didn't know he was doing that. And it's like, okay, I've been doing this for over a decade. I've never been so locked in on whatever I was writing on my legal pad that I was oblivious to the person sitting directly next to me and their actions. Like if they're eating nachos, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, he had nachos. Do I know how many? Did he use peppers? No, I may not know that, but I know that he had nachos in his hand sitting directly next to me. So like I said, where there's smoke, there's gotta be a little bit of fire. And to me, I don't know, before I get into that, what's your thoughts?
I mean, again, the first time for me hearing all this. So this story, I'm making comments and remarks based on what you just said. The number one aspect in life you can have, or one of them, I shouldn't say the number one, but one of them is awareness. And so you need to have awareness that if you are in your school's gear and you're at an opponent's game, even if you were filming for your wife, your girlfriend, it's not the smartest thing you can do because people are going to end up saying, oh, he's filming something from a schematic perspective. So like obviously zero awareness in that aspect. Find it hard to believe that that's what he's actually saying is true. Obviously, because, like why wait for that moment to be like, hey, look how cool Texas high school football is.
What is it? It's week 8, week 9. Like, was it not cool the first month, 2 months?
Yeah. So, sounds like a bad deal to me.
It's a real bad deal for you, Gary.
That'd be a real bad deal for you, Gary. Go out there and win state. What if we don't? Well, Gary, that'd be a real bad deal for you. So just get it done. But yeah, there should be punishment simply due to the lack of awareness on the guy's part. Because that's just not very smart at all. So whether they did or not, I don't know. But that's kind of hard to believe that it was simply for the beauty of the game.
And then, dude, like, you gotta like, his wife gets on Facebook, obviously defending her husband. Much respect, defending her husband. Like, she's going to stand right there next to him. 100%. Totally love it.
This is the guy that filmed it or the head coach?
No, this is the head coach.
Okay.
And makes what she perceives to be statements of facts. Hey, full disclosure, in general reference, if you're going to make a statement of fact, be careful of speaking in absolutes. Always, never. And then make sure that your statement of fact doesn't include subjective words like opinion or maybe. So now you've created this defense. You've taken your stance, and your stance is like, I'm not telling you a lawyer needed to read it, but like, you're hurting more than you're helping. That's one of those situations where they come in, they're like, hey, just be quiet. Let's gather all the information. When we appeal this thing, we'll sit down, we'll share our side of the story. Because once you put it out there, you can't take it away. And all it takes is one of those points that you are confidently stating to be 100% true. All it takes is one of them to be found to be slightly inaccurate, and your whole argument is thrown out the window.
Right.
And I've never reached a point like winning is fun. I love winning. But you got to be able to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, again, to me, that's just common sense. I mean, like,
but it's not. That's the problem. Is that it's not.
Well, that's a problem in the world. I fear for humanity if that's not common sense, because it's at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, which I'm not stupid to the fact that these things happen all the time. Like,
oh yeah,
so like, again, it's like, have awareness, and I don't know. I'm not gonna say be smart about it because you shouldn't do it anyways, but it's like, shouldn't do it that way. If you're gonna try to cheat, I wouldn't do it that way.
I mean, at least listen to some Lil Wayne. If you ain't gonna be good at it.
Yeah. So
not that I would promote that. All right, that was a joke.
Yeah. So now, okay. So they don't have. So they had to forfeit their games, right?
I'm pretty sure everything up to that point, district wise, was flipped to a forfeit. So they go
Texas,
from undefeated to district to win. I think because this happened before Friday, so I think going into Friday they had 3 games left.
Got it. So they even have a chance to make it?
I think going into it they had a chance. I don't know how big. It depends on how big their district is.
Oh, yeah. They have like a
if it's a 17 district, they would still have.
Yeah.
Okay, so they won 1, 2. Yeah, so they can still make the playoffs because they won Friday, and if they win their last 2, they'll still make it. So, which the worst part about all of this is imagine if they couldn't. Imagine if they were in a big district and winning those last 3 games wouldn't have done anything, and those seniors, that would have been the crap. Well, obviously, it's not going to play out that way, which I think is fortunate, but that would have been the worst part. Is that, to me, it's very similar to like the whole NCAA sanctions thing on coaching staffs. It's like these adults make bad decisions, so we're gonna punish the program, which inherently punishes the kids who probably had absolutely nothing to do with it and were absolutely disconnected.
Yeah, you're talking about our score right now currently.
Why, Trenton? Whatever do you mean? Would you like to explain?
I mean, I would. I mean, we're obviously banned for the playoffs for 2 years. This being the second year, because of things that happened with the last coaching staff in recruiting. So seniors of last year and this year don't have the chance to make playoffs because of something literally none of them did. Like, to me, that's where, for me, like the TSSAA here in Tennessee, which is the UIL in Texas, needs to take a look at how UIL handles things, because the way they handle a lot of things here is atrocious and lacks what we're talking about here, honestly, which is like awareness in a lot of aspects. So I'll keep it at that, but there's a lot more I could say.
100%. Well, and that's what's crazy is because this has been an issue with the NCAA for years. And I think that governing bodies, they get caught up into this is okay, well, we got to make a statement. We got to hand down a punishment that makes a statement. And you're or you could punish specifically the people. You could do an investigation that finds out exactly who messed up, what they did, and then punish them individually accordingly. Because
Right.
like Timmy's been playing football since second grade. He was a junior on JV, and now he's getting a chance to start on varsity in his senior year, and they got a chance to make the playoffs and maybe win a couple playoff games, and boom, it's all dead because of something an assistant coach did.
That's exactly. I mean,
How
that's
is
how it
that
is,
right?
It's like you have these kids that have worked their butts off their whole life to get to this point, to make the playoffs, to go have a chance to win state, and because of an accusation of something honestly that wasn't even that bad, genuinely that a coach made, you're gonna say, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and punish the school, and then the coach leaves, and like, I know the guy, great guy. Coach leaves, he's at another school, and they're able to make the playoffs, and there's a chance to go win state, and it's like, well, hold on, how does any of this make sense?
Why doesn't he have a 2-year ban?
Yeah, like what's going on here? Like, it's just the way things are handled makes zero sense. And it's just, but this one kid, or not one kid, but these seniors, they get, in this case, one last chance to go make it, and because something they literally had zero awareness about, that they get one time in life to make this achievement, is ruined because other adults that lack awareness and common sense want to punish them, and in a way that basically encompasses everybody, instead of just saying, let's find a more of an effective way, more of an intelligent way to punish these people. But
And that's like,
obviously didn't happen.
and I think that if you approach it that way, it presents you the opportunity to hand down more stringent, more effective punishments. Did this kid accept impermissible benefits back when those existed in the NCAA? Okay, well, that kid needs to be specifically suspended or declared ineligible for a year, whatever. What coach gave it to him? Okay, well, that coach needs to be suspended or mandatory, like firing, whatever. He needs to be removed from Division I football for this many years, right? Now you hand down those specific punishments, and then obviously that way that guy's going to hopefully learn from his actions, but also now you can create the consequences to fit the specific actions instead of the blanket consequence. And now you have the opportunity to create, like, all right, XYZ University, this is your second time having what we consider to be a major infraction from a coaching standpoint. If you get a third, the head coach will be required to be fired.
Yeah. I mean,
like, why is that?
Here. I'll be really dramatic right now, but to me, like, governing bodies and the way of which they make decisions, I get it. There's decisions that got to be made, and you're not going to be able to make everybody happy. I 100% get that. You're never going to make everybody happy. But the way of which you handle issues, you make decisions, you gain or lose the respect from the people that you're obviously governing. At some point, if you make too many over years and years and years of not the most effective decisions that aren't in the best interest of kids, the people that you are governing will eventually overthrow you and not just need you anymore. And there goes your job, because they'll find another governing body, or they'll just leave and they'll find another league to play in. And there goes your job, because at the end of the day, they don't need you to play. At some point, those people can end up just collectively getting together and say, you know what, we'll create our own league with a new governing body. We don't need you.
Yeah. And the only two things that it takes is money and time. And as soon as a group of people reach a point where they're frustrated enough to sacrifice the amount of money and time that it takes, then that's how they're gonna solve their own problem.
Right.
But back on a slightly less negative, less stressful topic. Did you see the Mike Elko quote after A&M big win over LSU, come from behind win in a pretty dominant fashion in the second half, I would say. Yeah. But did you see his post-game remarks?
I didn't. I'm hyped up for this game. I can't wait to watch in the second quarter. I'll watch it. Yeah, that's me.
So they win. He's pumped up. And in the post-game press conference, he says, this is a real program. It's not fake. It's not a politician running this program, talking fast and BSing everybody. This is a real program. He then goes on to say, when I got here, the whole rhetoric about this program was NIL and mercenaries and selfishness. To see where we are now, you don't see those things. So that's a credit to those kids in the locker room. It's a credit to their character.
Whoa.
A lot of people say
Okay.
a lot of people say he ain't just talking about his kids.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say that first part that could be taken out of context and be like, oh, that was a shot at Jimbo. The second one,
There's no out of context.
yeah, second one's pretty aggressive.
He dialed in the scope. He knew what he was aiming at.
Yeah, it's I mean, they're winning, so I think
Right.
at the end of the day,
okay.
you say those things, and I'm not saying it's right, but you can say those things and it'll get overlooked. Those
Not
are
even
some things
overlooked, but
if it gets worse, it'll end up coming back to you.
right, but not even overlooked. Like the majority of people are going to read that, and if they interpret it that way, they're going to agree with him,
Right?
because they're winning.
Correct.
If they were 5-3, and he made a statement like that because they beat Mississippi State, come from behind, and then it's like, okay, we'll see. But
winning helps a lot.
is he wrong? I don't know. What are your thoughts on Jimbo?
On Jimbo?
Yeah.
I mean,
This is obviously, we don't need to beat around the bush. This is obviously a shot at the Texas A&M, the Jimbo Fisher version of Texas A&M being taken by him.
yeah. I don't know Jimbo. I think I'm an Elko fan. I think what he's doing is great. I think the culture which he's providing is great. Not saying that Jimbo's wasn't. I don't know anything that was going on. From what I heard, there was a lost locker room under Jimbo. Just the chemistry wasn't there. Recruiting was taking some hits. It became very similar to the end of Mac's era, where it became more stars instead of true evaluation. And this is all what I heard, because that is very, very obviously common with your bigger schools, because they do need to get the bigger 4 or 5 stars instead of the true evaluation. So apparently that was an issue as well. So again, so long they keep winning, I'm not that's going to be okay. It'll be a big backlash if they don't win. So.
And here's what I personally know, not secondhand, and you can attest to this being here for so long. The Texas High School Coaches Association, that's a big deal, and it's not just a big deal for high school coaches. It's a big deal from an expectation for those college programs. When you look around the state, right? Joey McGuire at Tech, former Texas high school football coach. Sonny Dykes, former high school coach. Jeff Traylor at UTSA, former high school coach. Then you go to the schools that their head coach didn't do. Dave Aranda, well, he's got 3 of them on staff. Heck, Matt Rule took 3 of them to Nebraska, former Texas high school football coaches. Those relationships matter because the state's so big and the UIL does such a great job of supporting the athletic endeavor that if you don't foster those relationships, it will bite you in the butt. And when he was here, he did not. And it was blatantly obvious. The one time he spoke at coaching school, it was, hold on, I want to make sure I read this right. It was a lot of talking fast and BSing everybody, I believe is how Coach Elko put it. He showed clips of them making "I'm more athletic than you" plays and talking about how great of a job they did putting their more athletic kids in situations to be successful. He said "I" a lot.
I hate that, by the way.
Oh my gosh, wears me out.
Dude,
wears me out.
If you are a head coach, I mean, you should use "I" when you're taking the blame from something.
When you lose.
Yeah, and you better have freaking awareness of like the way that which you speak as a head coach is very, very important. Like I've seen so many coaches in the past, it's I. It's like, dude, you realize you're about to silo yourself from everybody else on your staff because you're basically taking credit for everything. Not saying that we want the credit, but it's just more of like the perception of it. It's like when you don't say we and you don't include us, then why would like you're now basically excluding yourself from everything.
I mean,
Tangent,
I
sorry.
make a conscious effort. Yes, when our 2 games that we lost, they were 100% my fault.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure what I did wrong, but I clearly did something wrong because we weren't in our best situation to win. We didn't do enough. I didn't do enough in communication with the coaching staff, with the players. I didn't do enough to make sure we were all on the same page and on a successful page. That's 100% on me.
Yeah.
But when we are successful because those kids are out there putting the game plan into action. I'm not putting the game plan into action. I almost pulled my groin celebrating Friday. I ain't out there running. I ain't scoring 60, 70-yard touchdowns. I'm not making sacks and tackles for loss. We did that because our coaching staff communicated and did a great job of consistent communication with you. And then you were able to go out on that field and execute. We did that. I had a very small piece in that because the bulk of my work pretty much ends before the game begins.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that was the biggest red flag when he was there. When I'm sitting in the audience listening to him say I, and I, because they had the Kellen Mond kid out of San Antonio, and I talked to Kellen and I told Kellen, I did, hey, bro, what? Yeah. And now everything I've heard about, Mike Elko was not like the like celebrity, like sexy pick when they hired a head coach. But everything that I've heard about this man and his staff is that this is what the state expects from their college coaches. You entrench yourself in those connections because of how much they matter, because you want Terry Bussey to go there. Mm-hmm. And you want but all it takes is you to piss off that head coach and he go, listen, son, I'm not telling you where to go. I'm just telling you what I've experienced. And just like I tell our kids, I'm not going to lie for a kid when it comes to recruiting. I ain't going to lie for a coach either. Like, what's that going to get me? The free tickets we already get? Like, So if you're not fostering those relationships and if you're not putting that first, then, you're setting yourself up you're drilling holes in the boat before you ever put it in the water. And I think that, we don't have anybody that's on an SEC level, but I've gotten more mail outs and general information like good luck this year. Don't let your kids forget about Texas A&M, all those things. Right. I've gotten more of those from Texas A&M since Elko got hired than I have almost every other school in Texas combined.
Dude, shout out the Aggies, man. I know. Well, my former boss is on staff there, and I know how important the connection is to him to the high school coach. I know a couple other guys on staff as well, and they have the same feelings because that's just being lost nowadays. It's the importance of the head coach of what it used to be even 5 years ago, where it was like, you don't talk to the kids, you talk to the high school head coach. That's being lost. And so it is really cool when you have guys like an Elko or, my former boss, Coach Lynch, that are like, I'll talk to the kid and I'll have some contact, but I'm going to actually feel guilty if I do that. So I'm going to quickly hurry and call the head coach. Hey, coach, I want you to know I talked to so-and-so. We're going to start recruiting them. I'll go through you. Let's get this thing rolling. That's a lost art in my opinion. So I appreciate those guys that do that.
And I think and not to just, obviously I'm talking about the state of Texas, but like OU just across the Red River, they've been recruiting the Ryland Morris kid out of Honey Grove. And they went, when they were ready to offer him, they called the head coach and said, hey, we're going to offer him, coach. And he was like, man, that's awesome. He's going to be pumped. And a couple of days went by and the head coach went up to Morris and was like, Fletcher went up to Morris and was like, hey, you heard anything? He's like, no, why? And so he's like, hey, what's the deal? And he's like, well, you didn't tell him, coach? He was like, no, I didn't tell him. Y'all tell him. He's like, no, coach, we want you to do that. Like, we want you to be as much a part of this process as he is. They were trying to present him the opportunity to be like, hey, they're making this statement. They're ready to make an offer to you, but there's a lot of people out there, and there's a lot of places out there that don't operate that way. And if I didn't mention them, like Sarkeesian, I think he spoke this year at coaching school, and it was awesome. And he gave the flowers to so many like programs. He said in his like presentation, he said we did things in the past year and a half in our offseason program that we got from y'all. That we got from going on like out on our recruiting stuff and things that we picked up, seeing off-season programs at schools. And we felt like, man, that's going to be great for character development and applying it at the University of Texas. Now, was it that big of a deal? Couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Absolutely not. Because the guy made a conscious effort to not just have it be a tagline at the end, like, hey guys, appreciate everything you do. Come see us anytime. He had a slide in his presentation where he said, here are things that we got being on the road, visiting Texas high school programs. And you call it ego, call it pride, whatever you want to, you have to do that, because that is a fostering of a relationship that if you don't do, you will fail, especially in this state. Point blank, period.
Well, I agree. And I think it comes back to the overarching theme here is awareness. And so like you don't know how many coaches. I'll give you an example that there's a coach that showed up to our campus. I'm not going to say the school. I'm not going to say the kid. We had no idea. Okay. He shows up and he's with a family member of the kid, and he's like watching the kid work out with the family member, and we're kind of like, cool, man. He meets us, shakes our hands, doesn't even have a conversation, offers the kid, doesn't ask us at one moment, even again, never had a conversation, doesn't ask us one time, obviously, what we thought about the kid. And we haven't had a conversation with the school since. And that's where he's going to go. And, I'm not saying this kid in particular, but like it takes a 3-minute phone call if you're the coach. And that could possibly, I'm not going to say save your job, but could save you maybe on not getting a kid that could possibly cost you your job. If you just said, hey, coach, I'm going to go ahead and offer so-and-so, what do you think about the kid? And maybe there's a kid that, along the line of your coaching where the kid and you're like, hey, coach, here's some things that the kid has done in the past. Here's his character. I'm never going to say not offer a kid. I'm just going to give you the facts and you make your judgment off of that. Or maybe you might want to reconsider. But if you don't take time to call a coach, you're not going to know those things. And then all of a sudden the kid gets on campus and you're like, whoa, where all this come from? Well, if you would talk to the coach, you probably would have known that.
And you never know where that coach is going next.
That's exactly right.
They have no idea where Trenton Kirkland's going to be the head coach of and have 3 5-stars on his roster. They never know where, he might end up as an analyst at the place that you end up at.
Yep.
And you never know. So
you don't.
Why not invest the 3 to 5 minutes? And even if you don't give a crap what they have to say, ask the question, foster the relationship, because you never know.
Yeah. I don't think college coaches, I don't think they understand.
I think a lot of them do. I think a lot of them do.
No, I'm saying I don't think they understand. Like, we keep tabs on you too. And I'm not just saying mentally, like a literal document. And of like, hey, here's this coach. He stopped by, like literally have a document of every college coach that stops by. And I write up little notes about the coach. And here's why. One day I'm going to be a head coach. And maybe one day that coach, I made good notes on him. Hey, this coach is awesome. Here, he came in on time. He presented this way. He already knew the information about our kids. He held a conversation, whatever. I'm very OCD, right? But keep tabs, because maybe one day that coach wants to, maybe I'm a high school head coach. Maybe that coach wants to get out of college. Well, maybe now I want to hire that guy. I can go back to document and say, you know what? This guy showed up late. He didn't know any of our kids. He talked badly about his own staff. I'm not going to hire him, even if I had the chance I could. And then the same thing goes with the kids where I'm at in the future. I'm like, hey, Joe, make sure you consider going to this school. Just know that who this coach is. He's going to be your position coach. Here's how he came and recruited our area. This was 5 years ago. Maybe it's changed. I don't know. But like those are things that like I don't think enough college coaches realize.
So, perfect example of that. I won't say the coach's name. There was a coach that was on staff at Baylor when I first got there. You can obviously narrow it down because it was the last year of Guy Morris, and then that Thanksgiving, Coach Browse gets hired. And he's not, but he's there. I'm on a team, and I'm on the same side of the ball as this guy for an entire football season. And then I go into coaching, and our paths cross. He's recruiting the school that I'm at for multiple years in a row. I'll give you the fact that we weren't on the same team for that long, but I reminded you of it the first year. And call it pride, ego, whatever. But to me, I have had more in-depth conversation with coaches that I had never met about common connections and stories and background than was ever attempted by somebody that was on the staff of a team I played for. I will never forget it. It will always be on my mind. And if we ever have a kid that is being actively recruited by whatever stop or side of the ball he is on, I'm not going to tell him where not to go, but I'm not going to lie to him. And not that my opinion or that I am the most important person in the world, but we do a lot for these kids. Mm-hmm. I would say that you and I do not fall into the category of, I just coach them. It's not my job to get them recruited. I know for a fact that you go above and beyond to get kids opportunities that say they want them. So if we're investing that much time, energy, and effort, we don't need a plaque. We don't need, an NIL kickback, but a look in the eye and a handshake and potentially remembering a conversation that you've had with us goes light years. And I think a lot of coaches, especially in the state of Texas and that recruit the state of Texas, know that, are invested in it and affirm it through their behavior. But you want to see coaches that are struggling to climb the ladder, they probably struggle with some aspect of that.
100%. I mean, just like I'll never lie to a kid about a coach. Like, I'll never, lie to a coach about a kid. It's the same thing. Like
1,000%.
That thing goes both ways because at the end of the day, I ain't looking for nothing. Like at the end of the day, all people want is to be told the truth. And I am getting to that point in my career where it's like,
okay,
early on.
Got it.
Like exactly. Like early on, in our career, it was, we kind of had I'm gonna be the coach for the Cowboys. I'm not saying we don't have those aspirations, but what I am saying, I am getting to the point where it's like, dude, you're always going to end up where you're supposed to end up. The universe will align to that, and God will help you get there. So all I'm going to do is be just very, very blunt with everybody. And whatever happens is going to happen. But I'm no longer going to like tiptoe around things anymore and just be like, wow, well, yeah, I'm just going to act like this towards this coach and this towards this coach. No, I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to tell them exactly what I think. If he doesn't like it, I really don't care. But what I do know that I did when I go to bed at night is I told the truth, period.